This lesson plan does include a writing prompt where the student must form a hypothesis. The hypothesis will be constructed upon students learning how a new technique is being used to preserve the true colors of China's terracotta soldiers. Students will write a hypothesis in regard to the difference in apple slices that they have observed between apple A and apple B. This component requires students to communicate through writing as a scientist. This lesson plan requires students to interact by explaining how archaeologists preserved the paint colors when they sprayed the soldiers with PEG and wrapped them in plastic. Students can discuss this as well as their observations of apple A and apple B throughout the experiment. Students can also interact by reading the article Ancient Army aloud or in groups and discussing it as well. Students will use the language of their discipline to share their knowledge, learning, and findings. This lesson plan does contain a project-based activity. Students are able to do the real work of a scientist and perform an experiment that one would do in the real world. Students must observe 2 apple slices and note the differences between the two. Students will learn how real scientists, archaeologists, preserved paint colors of soldiers by spraying them with PEG and wrapping them in plastic. This lesson does require students to think like a scientist. It requires students to learn, use, and know a specific set of behaviors dedicated to the discipline or area of study within the discipline. Students must use their skills and knowledge of science to form and write a hypothesis about their observations of 2 slices of apple bowls. Students are required to note the differences of apple A and apple B after the bowl of apple A is coated in lemon juice and apple B is left untouched. Over time, students will observe the result of each product and use their knowledge of science to discuss any changes. I do feel like this lesson plan has potential to be a quality lesson plan. It could have included a few more steps in my opinion. Everything was included into the lesson plan but could have been elaborated on in each section. Writing component, interaction, and project-based activity were all included into the lesson plan. However, I feel that overall lesson plan was almost like a summary of a lesson plan. I feel as if it needed a lot more detail and instruction. I feel as if it needed more purpose.